My name is Michael Morisette. I'm the father of Christina Morisette, who was killed at the Borderline Bar and Grill shooting on November 7th, 2018, around 11:30 p.m. My wife and I were already asleep, and we were awoken by phone calls. I remember hearing someone screaming in our driveway, and then we were woken up to pounding on the door, which was the same person coming back to tell us that she had seen on the news that there was a shooting where Christina was working, and Christina was not answering her phone or returning text messages, but she wasn't supposed to be using her phone while she was working anyway, but because there was a shooting that really upset. And then the phone call started, and then we turned on the news and saw on every news channel, because it was a mass shooting, and it was one of those things where it was all over the news. And so that was our first awakening to the fact that something was wrong. We had no idea what was going on. All we saw was, what it says on the news when something first happens. You just get little bits and pieces. And so we split up, and our daughter's friend went to the nearby hospital. We went to the hospital closest to where Christina works, and in Thousand Oaks. And then by then, our other daughter, who was in North Carolina at that time, she was going to call the hospital in Oxnard. So between the three of us, we were going to find out if Christina was transported to any of the hospitals. But after a while of interacting there at the first hospital, we were sent to the Unification Center. It was probably 2:30 in the morning by the time we got to the Unification Center, and then we waited, and more and more and more and more people would come in. It was a gymnasium, or an auditorium, and it just filled up with people. And I could see groups of people forming. They'd form a circle around a family. And so we had our group against the wall, and I could see, and by then we were hearing reports of how many victims there were. So we started counting, the groups, and it turned out that we were the last group to find out that Christina had died, because even though she was one of the first, she was at the door. She was the hostess that night, and she was one of the first shot when he walked in shooting. And but because she was working, she didn't have her ID on her. She didn't have her purse on her, and her phone wasn't even in her pocket, as far as I know. But they told us that the medical examiner ID'd her from a thumbprint through DMV records. So we didn't find out till at least 10 hours later, 12:30 in the afternoon. Social acknowledgement to me is how people came to us and how people reacted with so much compassion. Sometimes I feel guilty that, that I'm speaking from this position of a mass shooting victim or survivor. And so many other people don't speak from that position. They speak from a different experience. But our experience was that we had so much support that I felt like people were put in, and it's like when I used to see it on the news, I'd be alarmed, and then concerned, and then relieved, that it wasn't my hometown, or it wasn't my country, or whatever. But then when something happens to you, and then other people around you react that way, where they feel like, the sense I got was they felt like it could have been them. just as easily as it was us and it was our daughter. I talked to several survivors, that were there that night, and um, they just, it's just, I don't know how they feel, but I got the sense that there was a lot of survivor guilt for, how did I get to walk out of there? And 12 others didn't. The acknowledgement of the people around me of the fact that this was so unacceptable and unbelievable and indescribable and just unforgivable, all those words, that the acceptance of everybody around me to that idea, and then the fact that they felt like so many people said, it could have been any of us, and these things do happen to anybody. So I feel like that made a big difference on how, I guess it was a lot of support to me to have people, I'm sorry, but it was supportive of me for other people to feel so devastated by it. To anybody impacted by a mass violence event or a mass shooting, whether they lost a loved one like I did, or they experienced the event themselves, there are so many parts of that we share in common that we need to focus on those similarities, and we need to be able to, first of all, take care of ourselves, and then to also be aware of others around us. Maybe they're not showing any signs, at first, but to be aware of others around us that may need support too. And then just the fact that anybody who's in your circle is impacted by it in some way. And the thing that I learned was, for me, leaning into understanding more about it was what I needed. And I totally get and understand that not everybody feels that way or reacts that way. So according to what we all need, I just feel like it's so important to say that we all do need something. If this happened to you, or your loved one, and if you need help figuring it out, get help. It doesn't mean you need a psychiatrist. It just means talk to someone, find out what you need, and then find out what you can do to live with it, because these things don't go away. That part of each of our lives is there forever. And as much as some of the time we might want to try to not think about it, that it's always going to be there, and whether you're thinking about it or not, and to just address that and find ways to live with it, and to go forward productively, and because we have other people around us who need us. I've had a lot of time to think about it. We've had 5.5 years to think about it, to get beyond the shock and the grief. Well, not that the grief ever goes away, but to get beyond the visceral gut reaction to something so violent and so just evil, happening to us and to our daughter. I think I eventually realized that, we were given 20 just amazing years with her, and that at her age, that she just got her car that year, and she was happy to have the job at Borderline, and to start meeting new people, and she just went on a trip to Texas to meet some friends out there and look into maybe moving out there some days, see what kind of schools that they had for. She was interested in, and it might have just been that day or that week, but she was interested in um, service dogs, either schools that train them or schools that taught people how to be trainers. I'm not sure what we didn't really have time to discuss it. She got back from the trip, went to work, and that was it. So we looked, you know, at the 20 years we had, and, and we're amazed at how much life she crammed into those 20 years. And at the time, it was overwhelming because she was just so full of every emotion, you know. It would, I mean, I thought she might have been bipolar. She was one day so happy and just dancing and singing. Another day she'd be throwing things and screaming and hiding in her room, you know, for 2 days. So um, she just filled the 20 years that we had with so much life. So we have to look at it like that was a gift. And that she was, you know, if she would have had time to go forward, she was just learning to, I hate to use cliches, but spread her wings, you know, learning to get out on her own and do things for herself. And you know, she was still very much part um of us, and I think we were part of her, but you know, as far as communicating and working with her, but she was really learning to go out and be her own person. And you know, one of the things that I grieve is not knowing what she would have done with the rest of her life. But you know, what we had was great.
To hear more from other survivors, visit the Supporting Mass Shooting Survivors website.